I've had just a really wonderful time over in Fiji, not on a resort. No, I don't like resorts. I don't like lying on beaches. So that wasn't there, but doing some ministry, Bible college graduation, and so that's why I was away last week. Then we were down at Christchurch yesterday and the day before doing the final of the Ministry Development School with the Beulah Church there. Hot as hot down in Christchurch. Man, I think we're going to have an unbelievable summer this year, which is about time. But anyway, it was a good time. But I'm back here, and I love being here. And I don't think I'm doing any more travel this year, so I should be here most Sundays. Psalm 118, verse 1. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Oh, let Israel say, his loving kindness is everlasting. Let the house of Aaron say, his loving kindness is everlasting. Oh, let those who fear the Lord say, his loving kindness is everlasting. From my distress I called upon the Lord answered me, and he set me in a large place. The Lord is for me, and I will not fear. What can man do to me? It is the foundation for the psalmist, is the fact that God's loving kindness is everlasting, that in his distress and in our distress, the Lord answers us and he sets us on a large place, and the Lord is near to me, the psalmist. He's near to you and I. That's the foundation. And then he speaks around all sorts of issues in life. Verse 5 talks about distress. In verse 10 talks about enemies. Verse 12, he talks about the enemies surrounding him like bees. But the complaints he kept coming back to the same foundation, and it's verse 13 to 14 where he says, you pushed me violently so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. Whoa. The Lord is my strength, my song, and he's become my salvation. And he eventually, because when you read the Psalms, it's a dialogue with your heart. You understand that, eh? I mean, it's about, problems, God coming through, problems, and we're going through all of this open dialogue. But eventually, in the Psalms, they always come to some conclusion that is a good conclusion. And this is one of the greatest conclusions that we can come to in verse 24. This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us be glad, let us rejoice and be glad in it. Now, some of you young people that are here today, you won't remember the song that we all sang, so I'll have to sing it for you, won't I? Let's go. Come on, those who know it. This is the day that the Lord has made. That's on. And because if you're really, really clever like me, you can do it in pidgin English, which goes, dispel a day, Lordy give him, me, something like that, whatever, anyway. I mean, multi-language, you see. And, but it's a great statement. This is the day that the Lord has made. At the bottom line, with all the stuff that's going on, the financial difficulties, the difficulties in our relationships, the difficulties in our own heart, and stuff that comes, and how the enemy attacks us, but the bottom line is, this is the day that the Lord has made. We'll be glad and we will rejoice in it. In the face of all the enemies and the disciplines of the Lord, and all of the stuff happening, today is the day that the Lord has made for me. It is one of the great conclusions throughout Scripture. And one of the, because we're thinking about our wedding anniversary, and Patricia walked down the aisle. When I saw her walk down the aisle, I thought, who is this woman? I mean, she looked amazing back then, and still does. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hands have provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. See, that's what it says, Lamentations 3:1. I am the man who has seen the affliction because of the rod of his wrath. And verse 14, I become a laughingstock to all my people, and so on. But then he comes up and he says in Lamentations 3:22-23, the Lord's loving kindness indeed never ceases, compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. They are new every morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. We rejoice, be glad in it. What an incredible belief that whatever life hits us, whatever blows come our way, every day begins as a new opportunity for God to intervene and to do something wonderful. That's the thing that makes Christianity different from every other religion on the face of this earth. That there is a miracle every day potentially to come and change our lives. And it may not come in the expected way or the desired format, but there is always, this is the day. His mercies are new every morning. When you get out of your bed, this is a new day, a new opportunity, a new possibility, a new chance for a miracle, for God to forever change your situation, for something to come your way to make it different. It is the most amazing thing. As Mark 10:27 says, with people it is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God. All things, all things, all things. What is it that you face? What is it that you think that God can't touch, that God can't deal with? What is the issue? The financial problem, the relational problem, the whatever problem that you got, the issue of sin or whatever in your heart. Friend, I want to tell you that yes, with man it's not possible, but with him, with God, everything's possible. Everything is possible. All things are possible. The most impossible thing that you face today, I want to tell you, there is the God of heaven who is waiting, because all things are possible and it's his heart to do a miracle for you. I believe it. Our walk with Jesus, people, is a faith walk. A walk where we are constantly hold out for the miraculous to come our way. And it really is about how we view Jesus with us and how we think about our lives. When you became a Christian, my friend, everything changed. And the way that you think had to change as well. And so I want you to put up on the screen for me that Psalm 37:23-26. Look at this. The steps of a man are established by the Lord, and he delights in his way. When he falls, he'll not be hurled headlong, because the Lord is the one who holds his hand. And this is what I love. I've been young, and now I'm old, yet I've not seen the righteous forsaken or his descendants begging bread. I mean, what a statement. I can actually say that. Personally, I was young, I can certainly say that. And now I'm old, I'm certainly saying that now. Yet I've not seen the righteous forsaken and his descendants begging bread. It's all about a miraculous God. Last weekend, I was reminded of this, and I can tell this story. Some of you know this story, but a lot of you won't. But I was reminded of it because I was speaking to the very Bible school where this happened in Suva at Pastor Suliisi Carrillo's church, the Christian Mission Fellowship International. And it was the graduation, 80 Bible college students. But in 1994, I think it was, I was invited to go to the Bible school when it was up at a place called Senawaloa, which I just never knew what I was going to go to. But they were having a move of God. And because the Lord had come to me in 93 and to our church, they wanted me to get up there to give advice on the move and help them with it. And I remember I'd never been in Fiji before. And, you know, we flew into I think it was Nandi. And then we had to fly from Nandi to Lambasa. And of course, when you fly in those little planes back in those days, Air Pacific, I think it was, or Pacific Airlines or something, or Sunflower Airlines, I mean, you could actually see the sky between the door of the plane and the fuselage. I mean, that's how unsafe it was. And you're flying up there, and I'm starting to feel, whoa, this is not too good. And then you land in Lambasa, And I mean, it's just a pothole of an airport. And they're all pleased to see me, these Fijians. And, you know, and they stick me in absolute luxury, which is an old truck on wooden seats at the back, and you're getting bumped up and down like you're a football. And I'm starting to feel real sick, like inside, culturally sick. You know, when you have culture shock, if you've never had culture shock, it's a horrible thing. And I'm starting to feel this. And we're going up this road, and it's just the worst possible road you could imagine. And we get there, and we get to a river. We've got to cross the river in the truck. And they tell me that the river floods during winter, and you can't get out of the area. And they're really pleased about that, because the students that by now are in total culture shock, because even some of the Fijian and other students from around the Pacific would go there and they'd get in culture shock, but they couldn't escape because you couldn't get across the river. So you were stuck there. And I'm thinking, Jesus, don't let it rain. And we get taken up to this little house, and it was horrendous. I mean, there were live electrical wires hanging down. And you'd have a shower and you'd feel the electricity come through the water in the shower. And there was no curtain, there was no doors to the bedroom, just a curtain. And I mean, I'm just in absolute culture shock, and wondering what the heck am I doing here? And I'm sort of hiding in my room behind the curtain, and it's hot. And the problem is, every time you turn the fan on, all the other electricity sort of turns off right through the whole property, just turning the fan on. And you know, because we didn't have computers back in those days, so you couldn't sort of take yourself into computer games, into Angry Birds or anything like that. There wasn't any such thing back then. And I'm in this it's just terrible. And you know, we have this foreign food, and it was nice enough, but it was different, and I'm feeling sicker and sicker and sicker. And then about 7 o'clock or whenever it was, all of a sudden, the Bible college students, 120 of them, started to sing. And over that hill and that house and that valley dropped the presence of God. And immediately, the culture sickness left me. And I just said, I'm getting down there right now. And I went into this environment that I have to say was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. As we went into that environment where these students were singing, and the power and presence was absolutely unbelievable. And what happened was, I would stand up eventually, and I just said, lift your hands to God. And I'd say, Holy Ghost, come. And the power of God just swept across the Bible college students. And you got to understand, they're on a concrete floor, and the concrete's all broken up. I don't think there's a window that's not broken in the hall. I mean, it's dangerous on that floor, but there's no catches. The power of God hits the students. They go smashing down on the floor, and they start rolling on the floor, drunk in the Holy Spirit. And I'm watching this, and they're laughing. And the laughter is louder than we could turn up our sound system. It was unbelievable. And when they got up off the floor, there wasn't a brown face in the place, because the dust had turned them from Fijian skin to white skin, right? Because of the dust sticking to the sweat. But it was amazing. And they all had a shower, and they all came back to Fijians again for the next day. Then we'd do another meeting, and the same thing would happen again. Go and have a shower. You know, but what a move of God. But you see, there's something happened one day, about 2 or 3 years later. I went there, and you got to understand that these students came often by foot and had to believe for the Lord, for food, for water. All they had was the clothes that they were wearing and the sandals on their feet. Some of them from other islands, some of them from other Pacific nations. But they believed for the Lord to get them there. And I'd heard some of the stories. They were incredible how they got there. And on the back wall behind me on that stage was a map of the world. And there was this morning, after I'd been there for a few times, and the Holy Spirit said to me to go, to get them to all come up in a line up the side and put their hand on the nation that they were called to. Now you've got to realize these people have no money. They have nothing except what they're wearing. And I'm expecting them to put their hands on New Zealand, Australia, Samoa, the Marshall Islands, Papua New Guinea, whatever. And with tears streaming down their eyes, they started to put their hands on countries in Europe, countries in Africa, countries in Asia, all around the world, England and so on. And I'm watching this, and they're crying out, and they're interceding, and I'm standing looking at this, and I'm thinking, how could such a thing be? These people have got absolutely nothing. And I'm watching them do this, and I'm shaking my head, and I'm thinking, what's this about? They've got nothing, absolutely nothing. Well, we prayed and so on, and about 5 years ago, I was speaking at Pastor Surley's international conference in Suva, and there was probably 3,000 in the building, a couple of thousand outside. And I had a number of the pastors come up to me, and they said, do you remember that morning at Senawaloa when you got us to put our hands on the map? And they said, I'm there. And they talked about Africa and Europe, and I said, we're there, and we've started a church. And I was just amazed at what God can do, because with man it's not possible, but with God all things are possible. And I witnessed the impossibility in the lives of people who have nothing. And it is such an honor to be a part of a group of people that were prepared and are prepared even today to lay their lives down for the gospel of Jesus Christ and to pay a cost for what is happening. All things are possible. They had one thing that is more valuable than money or anything, and that one thing is faith in their heart. They had expectancy. They had a belief that God can do the miraculous. I celebrate the miraculous this week, the intervention of God. Like all of you, I've got certain financial needs, and I had expected maybe to get some love offerings when I was in the United States and would cover a particular debt I had on a credit card. And the floods came into Houston, and that really mucked up a lot of things for me. I had to cancel a trip there, and I was left with this credit card debt, and it was $8,500. And I'd really believed for the Lord to do a miracle some way in all of my travels and so on, that I could get this paid off by the end of the year. And I thought, how am I going to do it now? Because I had it all worked out how it was going to happen. And I was a bit peeved about it, really. And at the floods. And by the way, actually, let me tell you a little story. While I'd just been over when I'd been over there recently, and I went to the church on the Rock in Katy, Texas, which is the church that Missy Christie goes to when she's in Houston. I preached there. We took the band, the Cook Island band there. They had their church completely flooded out, and it's virtually totally restored. It's the most remarkable thing. Christians from all over America came into Houston, and they found churches that had been flooded. Now, we sent 1,000 New Zealand dollars to that pastor because I rung him to see how he was, and he was very distressed by what was happening. So we blessed him out of our tithe, the tithe. So that's why I went and saw him. And he just showed me the miracle of how Christians gathered together from all over the country, found churches, bought money, bought resource, bought materials, and worked tirelessly to get these places up and running. And this was one of the churches. So I came back from Houston and Jacob Biswell's church and back from Fiji, and I'm thinking, Jesus, I got this 8,500 I've got left on the card, and I really have been believing. And all of a sudden, I got a communication that there was $8,500 that had been given to us, and what did we want to do with it? And I was stunned. I couldn't see any way that I was going to get that credit card paid off this year. And I was looking for a miracle. And when I thought God was going to move, he didn't. He did it another way. But you see, with man it was impossible. But with God all things are possible. And I've had a week of rejoicing at that credit card getting paid off. And so now I've raised my expectancy for a few other debts to get paid off. And I'm just believing God. But I tell you, on Tuesday, God did the impossible for me. And we say that thing about money every week, and it works. The declaration works. It's worked for me and for Patricia. What a week we've had as we've celebrated God's intervention. See, you think that you're the only one with financial difficulty, but we got to face that every week ourselves. And to get around the world and do stuff that we do, it requires a lot of money, and sometimes it can be a bit difficult. You know, I want to encourage you today in your faith walk. See, I stand here today because I can testify God did a miracle for Pat and I. And the truth is that God can do a miracle for you. And I want to encourage you to come again to the throne of God's grace and come again and pray about stuff that maybe you have got discouraged over, because we do get discouraged. At times you pray about something, sometimes for years, it never seems to happen. But I want to tell you something. God hasn't forgotten you, hasn't ignored you. And I want to encourage you to come again. And those areas that you just walked away from, you thought, well, maybe God just doesn't love me, or God doesn't care for me, or He's not going to answer me. Come on. Look, with men it is impossible. We get that. But with God it is possible. And I can tell you, I didn't know how it was going to happen for us, but God did something. Do you know, I want to talk to you about something else along this line. Because I know that when we come to Christmas, for many people it's a very, very fearsome time. And the reason is because of money. You got to pay for presents and for food and all of this sort of stuff. And when you end up like us, 5 children and, 7 or 8 or something grandchildren, and their husbands and their wives and blah, 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 it can become quite expensive. And you think, how am I going to do it? But I'm going to give you one suggestion. This is what we do now. We, for the adults, for the teenagers and adults, we play a game. And everybody has to give one present, bring one present. If you're a female, you bring a female present. If you're male, you bring a male present, or something that anybody could have. And we put a value to it, and you can't spend above a certain amount. And it might be $10, might be $25, might be $50. It just depends what the family decide. And they all wrap it up. No one knows what they put. And they all put it on the middle, hand everybody a number. And then number 1 goes, and they can go and choose whichever present out of the lot that's wrapped up. And then they open it up, we all look, and everybody's thinking, I don't want to have that, and others thinking, I'd like to have that. Then it's number 2's turn, and they decide whether they pick a present off the thing, or whether they go and steal the one off that person. And if they steal the one off that person has to go. I think they steal it off another present off someone else, but they can't steal the same one back, And all the rules, there's a few rules, so you just talk to Patricia about it, or Ruben or Kylie or whatever. But you see, here's the thing. What used to cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars now costs us maybe a few dollars. But we save huge, huge amounts of money by just playing that game. So all of a sudden, we're not having to all give gifts to everybody. It's one gift, It means that it puts a limit on the amount of money that's spent. And you know what? In the long run, you just think about all the Christmas gifts that you've been given. How many of them are you still using? Because actually it's not about the gift. It's about the relationship of family loving each other and having fun together. And actually, that's the thing about it is we all look forward to it every Christmas because we're not burdened by the money, number one, and we're having a phenomenal family time. That's one suggestion. I want to give you another suggestion. See, some of you, you get into the middle of summer and you're at home, you got all your kids, and they're all wanting to play computer games, and you're sick of them playing computer games, and you're sick of them watching TV, and all the rest of it. But I thought everybody knew what I'm about to tell you, but I realise a lot of people don't know this. That do you know around Auckland City are these things called regional parks? These regional parks are free for you to go to, and they have some of the most pristine, brilliant beaches in the world. And they're within driving distance, maybe an hour, some places half an hour, some places an hour and a half. And why don't you download off the internet the regional parks of the greater Auckland area? And all you have to pay for is the petrol to get you there. And if you do it really cleverly, you get a few adult family members to come with you, and you all put in a few bucks for the petrol. So instead of costing you $40 or $50 to do petrol there and back, might cost you $10 or $15, but you end up on a world-class, pristine beach. The beach is up just around up Warkworth Way, up there, up the peninsula there, Parkery and Tawharanui and so on. These beaches are unbelievable. Patricia and I were there just a few weeks ago because we wanted to look at a new regional park that was there. Then we went to one of the ones with the white sand, and you go way to the right, and then you go miles along to the left, and you got this pristine white sand beach. And you can picnic and swim. You can't fish because it's a marine reserve. All of those parks generally are marine reserves. But you don't need to sit at home, but take your family to some of these places. I want to suggest something else to you, that grab some friends here in the church and say, okay, why don't we tomorrow go to Tawharanui or Parkery or out at, I think it's Dudders Beach, or go to Awhitu where we used to have our camps. You go up the Awhitu Peninsula. There are the most unbelievable beaches up there. They're not even regional parks, and nobody knows about them. Wattle Bay, Orua Bay, and so on. These are amazing, amazing places. I mean, I took these guys up there, didn't I, up to the Manukau Peninsula, your family, about 6 months ago. I mean, it was phenomenal, wasn't it? And they'd never been there. Do you know, you can make this holiday a brilliant, brilliant season that doesn't take all of your money, but you can give your families a terrific time. And I want to encourage you, download the maps and then get with some friends and just say, okay, let's do it. So this is what I've just decided to do just right now. Here's the deal. I took these guys up north, but let's say you decide to go to Tawharanui, and I'll put in personally, let's say I'll put in $50 to help with petrol for anyone else that wants to join and bring their cars to help you with it, so that at least we can get this going. But I want the church just decide we're going to do it together. I'll give it to you later on today, and then grab a group of people, go to Tawharanui, enjoy the white sand beach sometime over Christmas, and but make that just the first of a lot of journeys. You go over up to Cornwallis, go up to Watapu. I mean, these are amazing places. You go to Bethel's Beach, where I go just about every day, and I go on a walk most days that I can. and there's the caves, and you go up over the hill to the other beach that's there. I mean, where all the movies are done, and it's all within a half an hour of driving distance from here. These are amazing places. But you see, what am I saying? There are ways of actually facing Christmas. Number one, with faith, and number two, with some really, really decent strategy. And when you bring a team up there, you get $50. And I'm believing that there'll be a whole lot of other people that'll put in $10 or $50 and give it to him, and then make a few trips. Finally, I want you to renew your commitment to pray over issues that you've stopped praying about. Number one. Number two, to believe again, even though it seems impossible, on the things that haven't worked for you. But more importantly than anything else, each morning when you get out of bed, you start with this. This is a new day. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will be glad and rejoice in it. For great is your faithfulness. Lord, your mercies are new every morning. I want the band to come up, and we're going to sing that song again. Arise every morning with expectancy in your heart for something fresh to come to you. I tell you, it doesn't take much for God to decide to do a miracle. And he's already decided, but for you to start to go to faith again, and you just never know what God will do. I want to pray for you this morning right now. Why don't we all stand?